So I want to explain what we're doing here. This is a mandamus action, right? It's a very simple process. It's within the school code. 10 citizens finding that their elected officials that took an oath of office to uphold these laws are neglecting their duty, right? They're failing in that respect. Let me make sure we understand the difference here. So neglect is a failure to care about the law. They just ignored it. They knew what it was and they chose not to, right? It's not misfeasance, right? Which is just they made a mistake. Oops, right? Or malfeasance. It was wrong of them to do this. It was purely neglect. They knew what was right and they chose to do wrong, right? They neglected their duty under the law. So that's what we're looking to try to do, is have the law applied. We looked at 3 specific areas. The first one, actually, we'll hit this again. The first one is the president. He has a responsibility, right? He shall call a special meeting whenever told to do so in writing by any 3 members of the school board of directors. Pretty straightforward. Most people can read English. Shall is a very important word in this sentence. But anyway, with that being said, he has a responsibility. If he doesn't meet that responsibility, he's neglecting his lawful duty and responsibility. When 3 board of directors saw at the end of December we were having some issues within our schools, we wanted to get the public input as requirement by school code and as requirement by LASD code, that we seek their input. We want to find out what's going on. I mean, we were getting letters about these kids being injured in our schools. We wanted to hear from the stakeholders, right? A meeting's how you do that. The others are blocking such thing. They're looking for ways to block such thing. Frustrating as can be to have a president of a board neglecting the duty to call a meeting, right? So let's take a look at this, right? We got a couple things. We'll do this neglect first of this calling a meeting. Dun, dun, dun. Here we go. So, Pennsylvania School Code 426 says you have to call the meeting. Times News talked about these injuries inside of the school district, right? People are writing letters to the editor. People are writing letters to the district, the board. Interviews, injuries. We want to know what's going on with our districts. The controlling body is this board, right? We have a responsibility to orchestrate and collect the data and make accurate decisions. Obligation. If you don't have the information, you can't make accurate decisions. Pretty straightforward idea, right? So hold on. The government has this organizational chart. Stakeholders are up here. We take orders from them. We listen to them. We take their input. We listen to what's going on. And then we have a subordinate solicitor and a subordinate superintendent. They're supposed to administer the laws that we write as a board. Failure to do that. Make a mess. All right, so we go down here. Times News. So repeated offenses by bullies were raised. We have emails from parents concerned about what's going on. Right? They wanted their voice. They wanted to be able to go on a meeting. They ended up coming to the meeting in January, still not getting the opportunity to really discuss and provide input to some of the problems that were happening within the district so that the board of directors can solve the problem and work with the administration, work with the solicitor, work with the Pennsylvania state and the federal government to make sure that your schools are safe for these kids to be able to go into, right? That's how the process works. You elect officials to collect and maintain and manage this data, retain these records, so that we can make sure we can administer, protect the students, save the community. 3 board members seeking the input, right? So then what we do is we use this evidence. That here's your 3, right? So Dave says, I want a meeting. Yes. Rusty says yes, right? Joey says yes. Rusty says yes again. Gail, right? I'm providing written requests. So there's your 4 people. Bang, 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 bang. But you see what happens with our issue here is that when we requested it, it got to Larry, right? 8:15, 8:30 a.m. Hey, let's get the solicitor, right? I think Larry forgets this whole concept that he can call the solicitor. We're part of that school board. We should have access to our legal counsel. But instead he has his wife's boss, the subordinate superintendent to the board, right? And he comes back and says, I'm guessing the way it reads, what is this guy doing reading this thing, trying to make an opinion in a dissertation as to how it reads, right? And we should have his reading checked because at the bottom of that email it says, he shall call a special meeting. Right? So I don't know what the heck they're thinking. Does not have to act on the request unless the majority of the board. That doesn't make any sense, right? So then you get Schwab to pine in, right? Here he says, there's no penalty under the code. There's no penalty to not comply with the law, uphold your oath. That's where we're at. When you have a solicitor saying there's no penalty under the law to Larry, and Larry neglecting the law that's black and white, says you should do this job, this is your duty, this is your responsibility, your lawful responsibility, don't neglect it, right? And they don't do it. You got to get a judge, you got to get a third party, you got to get an unbiased individual to read the words, he shall do this, as written in Pennsylvania School Code, and then enforce it to make sure it's going to happen. And if not, boodle. That ultimately is how the system's supposed to work. Let's see if it's going to work that way. I think it will. Right? Especially with the well-documented and egregious acts of these board of directors. Okay, so then he goes down, he does it again. Right? He says he didn't write the statute. Of course not. If he decides to call it, the remedy is for fine to request it. There's no penalty under the law. He doubles down. Sorry, people don't get the right to speak. Sorry, people don't get to have a meeting. Sorry, this rule that says 3 people can ask for a special meeting and then the president calls the special meeting is null and void because there's no penalty. Doesn't make any sense. At least that's the way that they're showing it to be. Okay, so 3 stakeholders. Let me get out of there a little bit. So there's our emails, right? Neglected the meeting. Obviously, we didn't have one, right? Lack of a meeting. We have parent emails, participation at the January meeting, right? And the minutes of the January meeting, page 20, and the public comment showing that they wanted to speak. And then we have the oath of office. So it's pretty straightforward. There's a law. It should be applied, not circumvented, not neglected, right? Not opined in the opposite of. So that's one of them. Let's do another easy one. So here we have sale property. That one's a little bit more convoluted, a little harder to do over the internet, but let's just do it anyway. Let's take a look here. Let's do this 218. Okay. So this is another one. We'll do the advertising. That one's a little bit longer, and we'll do that in a separate video. But the short story of the advertising is the law says thou shalt do these things. Pretty straightforward. You have to do this, this, and this if you want to go sell a property. Well, if you only do this one or this one, and you skip this one, what's the value of the property you're going to get when you sell it? And does it even matter? If the law says do these 3 things and you only do 2 of them, I pick these 2. It's an issue. It's a concern. Why did the board block or neglect the responsibility to do that? They know what they're doing. They've been in this board for many years. Right? It was shown to them, reminded to them. And then to fail to do it, to neglect their duty, harms the community, right? But let's go to this 218. This is an easy one. The law is very simple. Pennsylvania School Code. Let's pull that back up. Right? Just look up 218. There we go. Section 218, reporting. So right here. An annual financial report shall be submitted to the school secretary of education October 31st. Right? Pretty straightforward. So, when did we do it? Let's just take a quick peek. I can even do this more quickly by doing this, not even using the piles of evidence that we have collected. Just go to the business office, go to the AFR, annual financial reports. There it is. Months late. Does it matter? Does it matter? Should it matter? If your homework is due on October 31st, should you be turning it in on March 5th as a responsible, or did you neglect your duty to give this information to the public and the press and the state to help evaluate what your budget's going to be for next year by having an annual financial report created and due on October for all the numbers that ended in June 30th, right? July, August, September, October. You have 4 months to do your homework. Pretty straightforward. Take the numbers that you spent, put them into the format, and publish it, right? We're not doing financial engineering here, I hope, right? You're just taking the numbers of what you actually spent and putting them in a format. Put them in a form. How much did you spend on this? How much did you spend on that? It's not rocket scientist by any means, right? And it's an audited report, right? You have to have it certified. So the numbers better be right. Pretty simple. It's this document that's used to help create a budget. We're in the position we are now because this district neglects their duty to do their homework, right? And that's evidentiary proof straight off the district website. Here you go. Neglecting the lawful duty to comply will result in penalties paid from the educational funds of our district. We would pay upwards of $30,000 in penalty. Go back to Pennsylvania School Code 2552. Pennsylvania School Code. One, failure to file reports. Forfeiture, $300 per day. The Department of Education shall order the forfeiture of $300 per day to the school district, right? It fails to submit it. Taking money out of our pocket for not doing their homework. It's wrong. Just wrong. Just follow the law. It's such a simple thing. This is the job. Do the job. When you neglect the job, boot them. Right? Pretty straightforward. In opposition to the previous litigated matters, Ackerman, Palm, Luigi, these are all responsibilities of a director to make informed decisions. How can you make an informed decision if you don't have the documents? If your board of directors, your 5, aren't requiring your administration to do their job, right? It's not the administration's fault. It's the board's fault. Buck stops with the board. They neglected the duty. They neglected to hold their subordinate administration accountable to the stakeholders. When they abdicate their authority to the very people they were elected to oversee, you have a problem. A systemic problem. Right? This is just the result of that problem when they fail to follow the law. The law's there to make the board do their job. And their job is to make sure that the administration does their job. Pretty straightforward. And we all answer to those kids, those parents, and those stakeholders. And as soon as you don't answer to those people or hide from those people by neglecting the responsibility to have a special meeting, you got a problem. All right, failure to respond. So here we have right to know problems, right? So now you're trying to seek this information. You're trying to, hey, where is the information? Give me the information that makes up this report so we can at least still do our job because you didn't do your homework. And they take you to court. And they waste more money blocking transparency, lawful transparency. They even did a constitutionality challenge to the right to know law just to prevent people from getting this information that they don't want people seeing it, right? Oh, this is comical. Here, given the data that you have to give the bank statements to people, they took board action against doing exactly that. We have documented minutes from February 24th, page 14, where they physically took a vote in neglect of their duty, right? Neglect to provide the lawful information required so that board of directors can make educated decisions, informed decisions. The informed decisions dictated by Ackerman, Palm, and Luigi, right? Accurate decisions, informed decisions. Minutes, bank statements, more stuff. Oh, our district was caught making absurd arguments. Arguments that would make the legislature, the law, result in an absurd result, right? Why are we making these arguments? Why are we paying to make these arguments? Makes no sense. Then you got the judge's opinion telling us how we didn't do our job. The judge says, do your job. Stop wasting our money, right? And then they went after me with a slap suit, and then they went after trying to slap or a strategic lawsuit against public participation. They're trying to stop people from getting right to know requests so that they can have information to make informed decisions. This isn't right. I'll give you an example of that. Hold on a second. Here we go. So one of our evidence. Electronic correspondence with Attorney Freund, who's from King Spry. Jonathan Cleaver, who's our superintendent, requests to schedule a conference in reference to the slap matter. So not only is he paying, the district, our administration, our government board, government agency, our government agency is taking action, slap action, strategic lawsuits against public participation against an individual. They're billing it to the district, right? So the agency is asking their attorney, their solicitor, help us slap this guy. And the solicitor says, oh, that's a good thing. We can help you there. And then he collects funds to proceed in a slap matter. This is a government agency going after an individual using educational funds. Someone needs to get a check and a balance on this. We need to understand. Slap them on the wrist. Slap them on the wrist. Stop it. Right? It's ridiculous what they're doing. Spending our money on frivolity, in my opinion. Okay. So anyway, so we go back down here. That's the King Spry. King Spry, that's a resolution that was passed. These are all challenges to that. Use of public funds to physically attack an individual's rights to seek information and make informed decisions as required by law. Right? So now you know why we want the court to assign a judge and the courts to apply the law. Okay? Protection of students, here's some more, right? That goes back to our 426. And let's do the Let's touch on the evidence for sale of a property, right? So we had 4 properties for sale: Mahoning, East Penn, Shell David, Franklin. The first 2, Mahoning, East Penn, they have a duty under 707, back to the school code. What does it say you're supposed to do, right? So all we do is we go here. The law says when you're going to sell a property, sorry, thank you for your patience here. Not the greatest at this round. Anyway, we're getting better. It says, get me out of here so it's easier to read. And here we go. In one or more newspapers of general circulation published within the county or school district, and, key word here, and, there's an and there. I know, sorry, having some fun here. And in the legal newspaper in said county, right? For once a week, for at least successive weeks, before the date fixed in sales, handbills, right? Must be posted on the property proposed to be sold. And this is what needs to be done, right? This is the law. This is the job of what needs to be done. Pretty straightforward. Do your work. Do the job. Don't neglect the duty to do the job, right? So, we looked at the Law Journal. There was no advertisement made. Somebody did a right-to-know request. Barbose. Right-to-know request. Sought the records. Lawful compliance, right? Mahoning, her agency did Mahoning and East Penn. That's a clerical correction, right? Her right-to-know request was based upon those. The minutes, right? Then you go back to the meeting now. We recorded these meetings. Even the solicitor himself, when selling the documents, selling the buildings, said what needed to be done and left off the responsibility of letting the Law Journal, the official Law Journal, be notified that these buildings were being sold. So anyone in the country that pings that Law Journal could know that these things were being sold, so you could have more people buying them, right? Harming the district, right? Stacy Dirt, and then we got to look at how much did they sell them for, right? Here we got, pull this up. You got your appraisal minutes, right? Docs related to that. You got the appraisal service. Board motion in the minutes. Recorded board motion in the minutes. Giving somebody authorization up to $5,500, right? Ray Geiger, money to do a job. Stacy Durst in the public meeting says they saw the numbers, right? Saw numbers. Now, she's no longer on the board. But pretty obviously, when it comes to neglect of duty, right? Keeping a copy of an appraisal and retain those records, financial records. Make sure that they're accurate. Find out what's going on. Nod, nod, wink, wink, what's going on. David Kraus, no longer on the board. God bless us. Right? Thank you. God blessed us. Get rid of that guy off the board. Beautiful. Right? Arrogant mess. Anyway, they didn't do their job. They have a responsibility to oversee the administration, oversee the solicitor, make sure that the work is being done in accordance with the law. Right? Ask for help. Raise your hands. We had a workshop meeting. I got video. Right? Advertising property is a $30 billion agency, industry. Do you think it works to advertise a property? Do you think sells for more after you spend a little money on advertising? I think there's an inflection point between how much advertising money should we spend and how much more will we get for a unique property of great value provided to by a community that originally paid for it and their hard work, sweat, with the diligence of their children, parents, family members. Show some respect, people. You're a public servant. Do your job. That goes back to the 218. This goes back to protecting the students, saving the community for the audit reports. Let's do this one real quick. Let's do this real quick so we get an audit report, right? School Code 607. Pull it back up, right? Just you can do it yourself. 607. Use of funds cannot be used to pay in the forward in advance, right? You can't prepay them. Page 56 of the audit report says that they have prepaid balances. Can't use money from this year to the next year. Then worse is now our budget. Taking money from this year to use it on next year. And I say, oh look, we still need this much money. We used it last time. Come on, man. That's just not right. Moral, ethical, responsible. Stop neglecting the law. The law actually says you're not allowed to do this. Don't do this. What if there's a penalty under the law for that? Luckily, the judge will hopefully apply the law. Right? Audit report shows we had a prepayment of $1.6 million. School Code 609 says school orders exceed the sums of appropriate amounts in a budget. We get a budget report that shows that we're overspending an individual class. We're breaking the law. I agree. Fix it. Either move money, reapply. But to do that, April, May, June, you're neglecting the law. They're ignoring the law, right? They're failing to give good credence to the responsibility as a school director to meet the requirements under Pennsylvania School Code. That's why they need to be removed. This is not an isolated incident. This is not a wrist slap situation. This is a repeated, multiple problems associated with following and the ability to have lawful compliance. Here we have a video, right, of Larry saying the numbers that, and remember, buck stops with Larry, right? The board, president of the board, see how you do this here. I don't know. There we go.
Previous years, and that this budget number, as in the 2018-2019 budget, are actuals versus the fictitious $40 million budgets that were presented in the past, and even to the point of presenting the fictitious $40 million budget in January of 2019.
Okay, so here it is. Board guard charge. Larry, you're responsible. Stop neglecting the law. Stop creating fictitious board reports. And January of 19, let's go back to the good old school board here, right? See how quick I do this for you. Appreciate it, business office. Budgets, 2019 budgets. Larry, man. Resign. Just resign. You presented, you testified in a board meeting that the numbers created by the board prepares the budget, were fictitious, fake, lied, wrong. And here it is in January, right? That's the June one, sorry, my bad. Is this the January he's talking about? That's January 2020? January 19? My bad, hang on a second. So I guess that would be preliminary. I gotta look that one up. Preliminary of 2019, but still, The president of the board is the one that signs these things. I'll iron that one out for you. Larry. You can't say that you did your oath of office, you honored your oath when you're in front of the people saying that the numbers were fictitious and they're your responsibility to present and sign, and you're the one on these paperwork signing them. Resign. Just resign. Please. All 5 of you. Rita, Nathan, Wayne, Steve, Larry. Resign. Resign. Thank you.